there, welcome to my channel. My name is Doug and I'm back with another Inkquiring Minds Sunday video. Today I'm going to try to do a twofer. Two pens resurrected in one video. One is this desk pen set that I purchased at an antique store just a couple of months ago. This is interesting because the base is Parker. You might be able to see that right there. It says Parker. Maybe not. There. It says Parker. Nice marble base. But the pen that came with the base is a Sheaffer Touchdown Desk pen with a dolphin inlaid nib. These were called dolphin or porpoise or something like that because of that bulbous nose they have on that inlaid nib. That is a steel nib, and the pen unscrews at the back, and then there's that touchdown filler. So we're going to try to replace the sac on the inside of this touchdown and get this pen working again. And the other one I want to look at is one almost identical to an Esterbrook J that I recently restored. This is an Esterbrook J made in Canada, exactly the same brown root beer kind of color as my previous video. You can see that resurrection by clicking right up there. But this one has the clip has broken off. And the lever filler is nice and crunchy, so there's a desiccated sac in there that needs replacing. And the pen is covered with all kinds of scars, except for right there where I polished it as an example of my previous restoration to show how this celluloid can polish up. But the section on this is particularly scratched up, and the nib is really gnarly.
Oh, gnarly!
Now, I thought when I purchased this pen that I might be able to resurrect that nib. I probably could, given some effort. But it's not an actual Esterbrook, it's a Venus, which fit the Esterbrook J's, and Venus, I think, took over the Esterbrook company, or Esterbrook took over Venus, or something like that. But these were very typical in these Esterbrook celluloid pens of the 1940s and 50s. But I decided I would go ahead and look at eBay and see whether I get a replacement nib for that. And I picked up this on eBay. This is a 2668 Esterbrook General Writing nib. Firm medium, solid Durachrome, Renew Point, Esterbrook, Camden, New Jersey. So this should just screw right inside that section. Here is the nib that I bought on eBay, and it is a medium point 2668 Esterbrook. And we should be able to unscrew the gnarly nib. It has all kinds of gunk all over it. I have no idea what all that gunk is. It's chalky, blue. I don't know what it is, pasty, and screw in the Esterbrook, and there it goes. Perfect. Now, of course, we'll take that apart again. We'll try to get that section off by heating it and replace that crunchy sac inside that barrel. The sac I use is a number 16. There I have a number 16 sac. The Sheaffer nib looks in really good shape. They had that slightly upward bend to them, the Sheaffer nibs. We'll see whether it actually runs ink through it, but we'll polish that up. We unscrew the barrel from the section, and there's the touchdown filler. The way touchdown fillers work is there's a latex sac inside that sac protector right there, and there's a hole there and a hole there. That slides into this barrel, which has another metal sleeve inside it, which you unscrew the tail and you pull that sleeve out, and when you press down on this, there's a seal right here, and it creates a pressure that compresses that sac inside the sac protector. And then there's a little slot right there and a small hole right there. When that slot meets up with that hole, the pressure is released. So you press down and then it goes psst. That pressure is released and the sac inflates and fills up with ink. So the first thing we do with the touchdown is we pull off the sac protector and sac. It's just crimped on there, so it should be able to pull straight out. There we go. And we can see the feed and nib assembly that goes inside the shell, and the old desiccated sac is inside there. I'll actually push on a little bit so it's not that bad. but I know it needs replacement, so we'll pull it out. You can see how twisted it is. It's actually pliable, but I'm going to put a new sac in that sac protector. And then the way I find out whether there's a seal or not is you put your finger over the end and see whether there's any compression. And I can feel it tugging on my finger and then releasing. Sometimes it's easier to push it against your lip. I can feel it sucking on my lip. Yep. It's having some compression in there. And the way you take this piece apart, get a long slot screwdriver, put it down inside the barrel, and then twist the end off. That screw drops out, and then we can push that bit out there as well. So we can clean all these parts up, and I'm going to put this section in the pen flush ultrasonic bath, 9 parts distilled water and 1 part ammonia, and let all the old ink clear out of that nib assembly, and we'll see whether we need to get any further. I'm going to check that to see whether it writes first before I want to disassemble this any further. I don't think I want to if it isn't necessary. So all of these parts are going to go in the ultrasonic bath, and then we'll come back and try to fix these one by one. I'm going to try to heat that section off of there. It should go, oh, I don't need to heat it after all. It's coming loose. There we go. And there's bits of desiccated sac on there and all the rest of it sitting inside there. So I'm going to dig all that out, cut that off, and then soak all this in the pen flush as well. And I'll let that soak for a bit. Then we'll go inside with the inspection camera and see how much is left. So while I've got the Esterbrook barrel soaking in the pen flush to get the remnants of that sac out, I'm going to resack this touchdown filler. The sac protector is very clean. There's no remnants of sac inside there. I've got my number 15 size latex sac. These are thin walled because it's pneumatic pressure that pushes on these, so they have to be very thin. So I'm going to trim it to length, and we're going to put it on the end of that section. I've put my bulb syringe on the end of that feed tail and allowed water to drip through, and it's dripping through clear and freely, so there's no clogs inside that feed. I'm not sure how much heat it would take to take that section off, but at this moment I don't see any need to. So let's trim this sac to length by snipping it off just like that. I'll pull it out and clip just a little bit more off. And the other end of the barrel has a seal here. Now you can see that gasket ring is probably original, that white gray shade, and it looks a little bit worn. I'm getting suction through there, so I'm going to give it a try to leave it like that. And if I don't get enough ink, I'll see whether I can replace that with an O-ring. Do a test fit here to make sure it fits. These are very narrow, and you have to get the sac up over that tail inside there. There, that looks pretty good. I'm just going to test it to make sure it's the right length, and we'll actually see whether we can get any compression out of it. Before I shellac that down, I'm going to test it. So let's put this tail assembly back on. There, we've got the screws sticking out through. Put that through the barrel. Put the barrel on first, and then screw it on. I always like to put a little bit of genuine silicone grease on that touchdown sleeve so it slides nicely. It also helps with the vacuum seal. So I'm feeling some suction there. So let's put this back on here, and I'm going to test it to see whether it draws up any ink. So we're going to weigh the pen first. 1232, press tear, and then I'm just going to use water to see whether I can draw up any ink. There, let's see how much is drawn up. Well, 0.71. Yeah, that's about right. So I think that works. So now I'm going to dry that out, and we'll take it apart again, and we'll put that sac on with some shellac. Okay, I've dried out all the parts. Let's put some shellac on that nipple. See whether I can do this in one stroke. That's what she said.
That's my joke. Damn it, Dwight.
There, get it. A little bit of a twist, and then just put a bead of shellac around it, just to seal it. Make sure it doesn't leak, and we'll let that dry for several hours. And here we are the next day, and progress report. I let the shellac dry overnight, and then just pushed the sac protector on top of that nipple, and it's all ready to go. I polished up the section a little bit with some polishing compound and a little bit of metal polish on that steel nib, and I had scraped and scraped and scraped all of that old sac out of that Esterbrook barrel. And let's go inside with our inspection camera here and see. There we go. You can see it's relatively clean. I've brushed it and brushed it. I think I've got most of that out of there. I'll turn it around and see how that mechanism works. Yeah, it seems to be working nicely. So now the to-do list for the Sheaffer is to polish up the plastic on this. Lots of wear, no deep scratches or anything, but I'm going to take some polishing compound to the plastic here. I don't think I need to take any micromesh to it unless I find a scratch here or there, but it looks in pretty good shape. So we'll polish that up, and then we'll fill it up with some ink and do a writing sample with that nib and see how it performs. But the Esterbrook is going to require a little bit more work. The section alone is deeply gouged, and so I'm going to have to take some 400 grit flexible sandpaper to that ebonite section and get those grooves out of there, and then polish it up with some micromesh and some polishing compound. And then I'll do the same to the barrel and the cap. I've got some deep gouges in that celluloid, so I'll take the 400 grit and then go through the micromesh step by step from 1500 grit through to 12,000 grit, and then follow up with some polishing compound. And my polishing compound of choice is Meguiar's Mirror Glaze number 9 Professional Swirl Remover 2.0. It is an automotive polish and works really, really well on plastics and celluloids. So I'm going to put the section back in the barrel just to give it some grip to be able to go at that section with some 400 grit. And just a light sanding with the 400 grit shows up brown. That's that typical color that ebonite turns when you sand it, and it shows up where the gouges are perfectly, so I can focus on those spots. That one deep gouge is still there. And here's the barrel in the section, all polished up and shining. There are a couple of nicks here and there. Right there, for example, just above the E, little nick, too close to the E in the Esterbrook. So I decided to leave that in because I didn't want to erase any of that imprint. It's okay for it to have a few abrasions, some signs of wear. It is a 70-year-old pen after all. But that section, which was really gouged, has come up nice and shiny. Let's compare it to the cap. The cap I have not done anything to, and you can see the difference. The dull scratches, well, I'm not sure whether I'll be able to get that gouge out of there or not, we'll see. But quite a difference between the barrel and the cap. So we'll go after that cap, and then we will resack this pen and put the new Esterbrook medium point on it, and we'll give it a writing test. So let's put this pen together with a new sac. Here is the new sac. It's a number 16 size, and we need to trim it to size. It will come to there on that nipple. So we'll put it inside the barrel. We will trim it to about just below those threads so that it fits all the way down inside the barrel. So I'm going to leave a little mark there and trim that and see whether that will fit properly. Test fit. Seems to be about right. Yep, Doesn't go all the way to the end, which is good. And it's just about right. So we'll do this again with some shellac. I love this little shellac brush from the Inky nib. Just makes things so easy. And these are some of the easiest restorations you can do. These Esterbrook J's and the Waterman, Stalwart and Starlet, and pens like that with just a simple sack and lever fill underneath there.
It's 11 o'clock.
Give it a slight twist and then paint a little bit more shellac around that seam just to make sure there's no leaks. And we'll let that dry for several hours. Then I'll add a little bit of talc to this, put it back in the barrel, and we'll give it a test fill. Then we'll install the nib and do a test writing sample as well. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that sack to dry, I've polished up my Sheaffer desk pen. It's got a bit of a scratch right there, but I'm just going to leave that. The rest of it polishes up so nicely. Looks very, very nice. And so I'm ready to fill this with some ink and give that nib a try and see whether it needs any adjustment. We'll get out some Watermans and we unscrew the tail, pull that out, dip the pen in some ink, give it a push, and you hear bubbles. Let's see if I can do this without blocking the camera. Now let's shoot the ink back out again, and you'll see it shoot out, and you hear that gurgling noise as the air is drawn up. So that means that the touchdown filler is working. Here we go. Get out some paper and see what we've got. I'm guessing this is a 1960s Sheaffer Touchdown. Getting some downstroke skips. Touchdown desk pen. I am getting some skips on the downstroke. So again, without a loop, you're not going to be able to tell so much. But let's see whether we can focus in on that. There's a tiny bit of baby's bottom on that nib. So it looks like this on the underside. When the nib touches the paper, there's a little gap right there that causes it to skip on the downstrokes. So I'm going to do my baby's bottom technique with micromesh on this. I did a special video on how to cure your nib of baby's bottom, and you can see that by clicking right up there. So I'm going to do this technique right now, and we'll come back and see whether it works. Okay, that pretty much did it. That was the issue. This is super smooth now. I polished it quite a bit with 12,000 grit. I went through from about 3,200 grit up to 12,000 with the figure eights and the circles, and it now has no issues whatsoever. This is a very nice writing pen. I'm very pleased with this. The interesting thing will be to see whether this desk stand will seal that nib. I kind of doubt it. So we'll see. It's pointed down, so we'll see how well it writes from moment to moment. I'll be interested to test that because I've never actually really used a desk pen before. I've got some decorative ones on my desktop, but I've never used them. So I'm going to give this a try, this Parker Sheaffer, and use it for various notes and so forth and see how it works. I've discovered that it's a 0.5 millimeter to about a 0.6 millimeter, and it feels like a medium, a Western medium. Yeah, it's even getting a little bit thicker now that I'm writing with it some more. Yeah, that's a medium. Very smooth steel nib. Alright, so now that this is dry, let's put this in the barrel just to make sure that it slides nicely and doesn't kink. We're going to put some talc on that latex sack so that it slides nicely. And I should put the nib in the section first so we can orient the nib with the filling lever, just like that. And we'll give it a shove. That's good. And there's a little bit of shellac on the part of the section that touches the barrel, and that's holding it in place. I don't think I need any more than that. It's not turning. So we're going to weigh the pen at 9.28. Press tear, fill the pen with some Watermans. And see, we have 0.92 milliliters of ink. Very good. There we go. Now let's see how it writes. If at all, this should write pretty well because it's virtually a brand new nib. Should never have been used before. So 1950s Esterbrook J, and this is a 2668 medium nib. Steel, of course. Let's check the wetness. Oh, it's nicely wet. Lots of feedback. And we're getting a much thicker line vertically than we are horizontally. I'm just going to check the tines with my loop and see it's off just slightly. So I'm going to do a little bit of adjustment on this nib to try to straighten those tines out first. Essentially, very, very important to get your tines aligned before you do any kind of grinding, micromeshing, smoothing. That's better. They're aligned, but I'm going to do some smoothing on this with some micromesh. There we go. Just a couple of minutes on 8,000 and then 12,000 grit. And it's writing nicely now. There's still some feedback, but it's very, very smooth and wet. And there we go. Let's just check on the Sheaffer desk pen. And it's writing. I let this sit for 3 or 4 hours in the stand, and it wrote right out of the stand. So I'm going to leave that overnight and think about my thoughts and reactions to this double pen resurrection and come back and share with you those thoughts next. So what are my thoughts about these restorations? Well, I've left the desk pen for yet another night, and I just pulled it out just now. That's what she said.
That's what she said.
And it's writing perfectly. So I'm very pleased with the desk pen. Of course, the real telling will be if the desk unit can keep this nib wet for, say, a week without being used. We'll see. This took minimal restoration. I just replaced the latex sac within the touchdown filler. The seal on the back seems to be working fine, so there's no reason to replace it. And I think I'm going to use this as a desk pen, so I'm going to keep it with me. And if the vacuum fails, I'll replace that O-ring at the back. It's a fairly simple operation, and the pen polished up like new. So I'm very pleased with the Sheaffer desk pen set. I should call it the Sheaffer Parker because the base is Parker and the pen is a Sheaffer, but they seem to get along well together. No lawsuits involved. The Esterbrook came up brilliantly. I thought it would cause me problems because the last number of restorations I've had problems. The only problem I had with this one was getting the remnants of that old sac out of that barrel. That took quite a bit of teasing. And the nib on this one, because I bought it new old stock, it says it's a firm medium. It wrote okay out of the box, but needed a little bit of tuning. And that was just a little bit of 8,000 and then 12,000 micromesh in figure eights and so forth for a couple of minutes each. Easy to do. The only issue that this pen has now is the lack of a clip. The pen isn't really worth enough to find a way to replace that clip. These top finials were riveted in. There's ways of doing this with different machinery and so forth to replace that top rivet. But again, the pen is not worth as much as it would cost to repair that. As it is, if you don't mind not having a clip, this is a beautifully restored fountain pen now. Takes a lot of ink, writes really, really smoothly, and looks gorgeous in this brown striated celluloid, which I think looks like root beer or Guinness, depending on your preference. As to selling these pens, well, I'm going to keep the desk pen with me and use it quite regularly, but this Esterbrook I will sell If you're interested in purchasing this pen, drop me a line at inkquiringminds@gmail.com with your name and your address. I'll give you a shipping quote to your location. Anywhere in North America right now is about $10 US, and I'm going to sell this pen for $75 US. The last one I restored I sold for $90 US. I figured dropping it to $75 would be reasonable considering the broken clip. So if you're interested, drop me a line. And there you have it. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell to get instant notifications whenever a new video is posted. And you can join as a member of my channel for only 99 cents a month, and I guarantee I'll answer your comments in the comment section, and you will get cool emojis, badges, sneak peek unboxing videos, as well as instant access to my videos the moment I post them. And that just leaves it for me to say, use the desk pen. Thank you for watching. And that's all she wrote.
I made this.